Hey, here's a quick tutorial of how to add a send status button to GitHub so that you can send your status of what you're working on with an issue right into Slack. So first of all, I'm going to demo it and show you what it looks like. So it's a button right here. Click it, send status, and it's going to pop up with a modal with some drop-down options. You can say, I am working on, hit next, and then you can say, add any other examples. It's going to say I'm working on test issue. Link to it. You can maybe say, um, looking forward to this task. I don't know. You'd probably say something more useful. Click submit. And you can now see that over here it posted, Brittany is working on test issue and my message here. So it's super handy because then, someone could thread on there and say, good luck, let me know if you're stuck, or whatever. And you saw hopefully some of the other statuses you could choose from in here were working on, looking at, needing review, stuck on. So it's a good way to quickly say, hey, here's where I'm at with this. And imagine just a constant stream of messages that kind of show throughout the day where your team is at with stuff. So as far as actually setting it up, of course you just need to add pixie bricks and you're gonna add several bricks here, and it looks like a lot, but I'll walk you through each one here. So you start off with the button brick, which is obviously what adds this little button here. And so you can click this little selector and then go select it, or you can copy along exactly what I've got here, but that is basically what we want. That is going to say, hey, that button, create a new one just like that. This is where you can say where you want it to happen. I, of course, want it to happen on GitHub. I don't want that button to just pop up anywhere. And so that's where I want that. If you want to change anything here with like the styles or anything, you can do that here. I'm not really worried about that. I was happy with the default, so I left that. Next, you want to simulate a DOM event. And what we're doing here is all of pretty much these steps right here are just to get the username. And so that's a little hacky because we have to, basically the way you see the username is if you click on this profile, it says signed in as so-and-so. So we're basically going to replicate that, go grab that, and then close that again. So this first step is literally saying open that. And so it's saying, hey, go look for that. And again, you can click that arrow and select your profile picture, or you can just type this in here. Unless GitHub changes, this is what the text should be. But if you're following along and that text doesn't work, then I recommend doing this because you're effectively trying to grab that box. Make sure your event is selected to click. And then the next brick you want is to wait for a DOM element. So you want to wait for this whole thing to load because you're wanting it to grab that username right there. And so if it hasn't loaded yet, then that's not really helpful. So you got to wait for that to pop up. So let me load this editor here. All right. So, and again, you can select and click on specifically that element right there, which is the string of the bold string of the user profile name. Or you can just type in, copy and paste this text. You can set if you want it to wait any specific amount of time, but I left that blank and that seemed to work for me. Now we're actually going to go read it. So next you need the jQuery selector reader brick. And what you're going to do is basically define a property in there. So what you're basically saying is, hey, go look at that thing and you're just going to give it that exact same value, and you want to call it username. So you're basically saying, hey, I want to reference the username, and what it is it's exactly what I just told you to wait for. Once that's loaded, go grab that and put that in there, and we're going to call it username. So I also changed the output up here to GitHub just to make it a little simpler to reference. So, but later on when you want to reference this, it's going to be your output dot the property. So in my case, it's going to be github.username, and you'll see that later. Next, we want to do the exact same thing we did in the first one, which is click that profile to close that menu. So again, this is going to look the exact same as that first simulate DOM event. Make sure it's set to click. And now you've got your username data, but now I wanted to get a little fancier and add a modal that let you select a status and also added a message to it. So I started with adding a new field, adding the drop down field, I called it status. I said I am, just so the user can see what they're doing on this. And I added some options and I set this as the default. Actually, now that I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and change that because the more I'm playing around with this, I actually think working on is probably going to be a good default because you're more likely to be working on something. That's probably the most common action you'll take when you're making a status update. I also added emojis in here just because I thought they would be fun, and from what all I could tell, that didn't seem to break anything. So, if you ever have any problems, don't, feel free to play around with it. But I think that worked pretty well for me. And then I also changed the submit button text to say next because I wanted to make it clear that this wasn't the final step. There was something else afterwards. So form input or output automatically defaulted to form, so just make sure that's still there. And then I added another show modal or sidebar form, and I called it, I think it actually defaulted to form too, but just make sure it defaults to that so you have a way to reference that. But I added a new field for message, and I kind of liked that they were separate, although you technically could have put this with the other modal, but I kind of liked it because it felt little step by step and didn't seem to slow it down too much. But I added the name of it was field, I added the label. Just important to note, name is what you're actually referencing that variable with. Label is just a completely UI thing. That's exactly what you see over here. So pay close attention to what you name this. It doesn't really matter so much what you name this. Same with field description. I'm actually going to go ahead and remove that because I don't need that. And I set the input type to paragraph text. You could make it single line if you want or something different, but I thought paragraph text was good. You can require it. And then also, just left the final text as submit. And so for this last bit now, we're going to pull it all together, add the send to Slack message brick. And if you have followed along exactly naming everything as I have, you should be able to pretty much just copy and paste this in here and it should work right off the bat. But let me kind of walk through what's happening here. So if it doesn't, you can back yourself into what's going wrong here. So first of all, you need your hook URL. And this, you'll get this from your Slack apps. If you don't already have it installed, you'll need to go to whatever your Slack space is, .slack.com/apps. And then if you go over to manage, you'll be able to add it in there. Just search for incoming webhooks app. And once you're in there, it will let you kind of configure all the settings you need with it. I'm not going to go like into super far detail with that, but feel free to go over there, and that's where you'll be able to configure that URL that you need here. You can name the bot, you can name the icon emoji, you could also just leave these blank. And then you want to set your channel that you want this to go into. I wanted to go into a very specific channel. If you actually, if you wanted to get a little fancy with this, you probably could have added something in one of these drop downs to say which channel to post it in. I pretty much always wanted it to go in this channel. And for most uses, I would see it going into like a team channel. So I didn't need that functionality, but you could build that in here. And then this is the meat of your Slack message here. So just so you can see kind of what the GitHub and Slack syntax, what the Slack syntax looks like. It's URL pipe text in angle brackets there. And so you can see here we've got the URL / then injecting that variable GitHub username. So it'll go to their profile page. Then we have the pipe for what their GitHub username is. I added just is to say is doing whatever that status is. And here's how we reference that. 2 curly brackets and then at form.status. And then I've got one more link to the issue itself. And so I went from the context menu. You can or from the very first brick, you can use the context there to get the URL and the title. Just if you want to see what that looks like, go up your button and you see over here, this is what it's grabbing right from the place you put the button. And so it's easy to see the title there and also the URL. So that's what I'm using there. And yeah, and you can see after that, I have form to message. So if there was anything I put in there in that message, it'll include that. And yeah, that is good to go.